Oh, no, 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 not my Rich Man brush. No, no, no. Rich Man Shaving on Etsy. Check the link below.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Shaving with Rich. I'm really excited about this episode today. It's one that I didn't plan on doing, but somebody in my Facebook group online actually reached out to me today and they asked me, how did you get involved? What's your story, how you started to make shaving brushes? And it's something that I couldn't really just tell them in a PM, and so I told him, you know what, that'd be a great, I'd love to tell you. Let me make a video and I'll explain it all to you in the video. He was even more excited because then, you really get a lot more through a video than just sending a text message or whatever. So anyways, I just got done filming my other video, how I got introduced into wet shaving as a background, because you kind of got to know the background story on how I did this, because if you look forward, back then, if somebody told me I was going to be making shaving brushes for a living, I would have told them they were crazy out of their mind. In fact, I thought my friend had lost all of his marbles when he told me his hobby was wet shaving. I really thought he lost his marbles and that he was crazy out of his mind when he started showing me videos of other men in their bathrooms shaving in the bathrooms. Grown men. I was like, what? So, anyways, if you haven't seen that video, make sure that you go and watch that previous video. It's already up, and I'm sure you'll love it. Maybe has some kind of similarity to how you got introduced into wet shaving. I don't know, but I would like to know. So, in that video, I actually asked to comment below on how you were introduced to wet shaving. What's your story? And I'm looking forward to reading all those. But now moving on, how did I, from there, now that you know how I got introduced into wet shaving and how I got, from there, I left off in my last video where I got my dad involved. My dad, we went out to the Big Shave West. He didn't know, he didn't care about what shaving at all. He shaved with an electric razor for 50 years. He didn't have any plans on being converted to wet shaving or anything like that. He just wanted to hang out with his son on a road trip, which we made 1,000% we did use of on that trip. We talked the whole way there, the whole way back. We never turned on the radio or nothing. It was just 1,000% quality time, father and son. It was awesome. In fact, it's one of the best weekends that I ever shared in my life with my dad before he passed away. So I'm so glad that I got that opportunity. So fast forwarding. So here we are. We just got back from the Big Shave West 2016. My dad got familiar enough with the vendors and the products and kind of what this hobby is that I started, enough that he was curious and wanted to at least try it. So I helped him buy his first razor, and so I think I gave him a soap, and anyways, we got him started. And it was great. He, from the very first time that he wet shaved, he just loved it. My mom loved it too, because my dad was never one to wear fragrances and all of that stuff. He wasn't the guy that bought a bunch of colognes and all that. My mom always loved really good smelling fragrances and stuff, but it just wasn't my dad's thing. So we got my dad a soap, and it was on that it smelled good, but it wasn't like a cologne type scent or anything like that. But he enjoyed it. My mom loved it. After his first wet shave, she just loved the smell and how close the shave was, and she kissed my dad on the cheek, and she loved the way he smelled and everything. And they've been married for 50 years, So, anyways, it was a great video. And after that, my dad just enjoyed it. He just looked at wet shaving as something totally different than just something that he did on the run. Just check it off the box so he could be presentable in public or whatever. And my dad never grew facial hair. I found one photo of my dad, I think it was before I was born, where he tried growing out a beard, But my whole life, I mean, he shaved that off, and then I'd never seen him my whole life. He was always clean shaven, but he always did it with an electric razor until I introduced him. And so he caught the fire. He understood. He began to understand how it was something that just kind of he looked forward to, and it just was an extra spice in the day, something that just relax. And he was retired, so he had time, to enjoy some of those things. And it's just something that became an everyday thing for my dad, and he just enjoyed it. So anyways, that being said, my dad has always been a guy, as long as I can remember, he always was, from the time he's a little kid, my dad was tearing things apart, rebuilding them, making them better. When he was 14 years old, his dad bought him an accordion. It just spent a lot of money to buy him an accordion back then. And my grandpa worked so hard. He was working 3 jobs a lot of times. So to give my dad something like this, that was, it wasn't a cheap instrument, even of all the instruments back then, that was an expensive instrument. He actually came into the house a couple days after they bought it. My grandpa saw that my dad was on the floor, and he had spread out all these pieces to the accordion, and he just lost his mind almost. Like, he was getting ready to lay into my dad hard, because, like, he just spent all this money to get him this thing, and then he just saw it completely in all these pieces. It's like, you're never going to get that thing back together. You just ruined it. It's brand new, So my dad's like, well, hold on, Dad, before you, get mad at me. If I can't put this thing back together, then get mad at me as much as you want. But I'm gonna make this better. I'm doing this to make it better. He wanted to make it put an amplifier and make it so it was instead of electric guitar, he was gearing it up, a custom job to make this where he could plug in his accordion and make it electric. Clear back in those days, my dad was always having projects. He was brilliant. He was not afraid of any challenge, and he's always looking to make things better. Had that curiosity. He tells a story where he got given a watch back. The Mickey Mouse Club was a big thing in the original days, and they had a watch. And my dad was so curious that he took the watch apart and to see how it worked, and he went to put it back together, and he couldn't get it back he did get it back together, but he could never get it back together where it worked. So he never let his parents know, my grandpa know, that he broke the watch. He just kept wearing it. But the accordion, my dad nailed it. He totally nailed it, put it all back together. It worked better than it did before, and it was a genius move. He did a custom job, hooked it up so that it could be plugged in, be made an electric, hooked into the amplifier and everything, electric accordion way back in the day. So it's not like people were buying electric accordions, so my dad just made it. Anyway, so moving on. So my dad, as he started taking to this, I just tell you that so you gotta know the mind of my dad. He's not afraid of tackling any project. He lived for projects. So, and that's just kind of the mind that he had. And as soon as he got done with the project, he was satisfied. Then he was off to the next thing, just to do it. Well, my dad started to really enjoy wet shaving. It wasn't just another way to shave his face. He actually started to enjoy it. He looked forward to it. He's getting into the hobby, independent. He was watching the videos himself, and all that. So I'd come down and we'd talk, and he'd tell me his favorite blades of what he'd tried. And anyways, he's interested to try the next new razor and stuff like that. It was great. One day, he was in my shaving group, my Facebook shaving group. One day, I just saw a picture of a shaving brush. And my dad had mentioned, in the group, you see people making showing this shaving brush and that shaving brush and stuff like that. And my dad liked them, when he saw them. And one day I just logged on, and there's a brush sitting right there. Never told me he was going to do it, nothing. There's a shaving brush. it was really cool. It was blue and clear, and you know, my dad took this picture. It looked really cool. I was like, holy cow, you made this? Of course you made this. You know, you're my dad. I never, you know, he never mentioned anything about an interest in making brushes or nothing. But what happened is my brother-in-law, he had inherited a lathe from his grandpa that he never used. His grandpa used it, but my brother-in-law, you know, he didn't really like use it for stuff. It had just been sitting in the garage for years and years and years, collecting dust. Eventually he started turning pens on it, you know, but, you know, my dad saw it and just thought, I think I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how to make my own shaving brush. So my dad just decided that he wanted to do it. He figured it out. Next thing I know, I see this picture in my group. I was coming up on 1,000 subscribers. 1,000 subscribers to my YouTube channel. I thought, what better way to do a giveaway? Instead of just giving a soap or a soap set, you know, aftershave or something like that away to a subscriber for 1,000, I thought, how about if I made a shaving brush with my dad? That would be an awesome gift. So my dad, you know, once I saw that picture and I was in Ridgefield next, like, hey, why don't we do a father-son project? So I always look forward to doing things together when we could, and my dad loved projects, so it just was okay. I wasn't really thinking much of it, but we ended up, my dad kind of, it was brand new to him too, but my dad learned quickly, and my dad showed me what he learned and his techniques and what worked for him. Turns out my techniques, you know, ended up evolving it to a little bit different than my dad's, but anyways, my dad showed me the ropes enough to like get me into the first shaving brush, and we gave that away for my 1,000 subscribers. That was the first brush that I ever made. I made it with my dad, and then I had fun making it, so I just thought I made a couple more. Turns out a couple people wanted to buy them, and I was like, oh, okay. I had no thought that people would want to buy the brushes. I just wanted, you know, another project. They make one for me or whatever. Made a couple. Anyways, then they started selling, so I just started putting in the work, and I was kind of, you know, already off to the races and had a passion in learning on my own and stuff. My dad assisted me enough, kind of like a dad would help, you know, his son learn how to ride a bike, got training wheels until he's, you know, comfortable with it. And he's like, you know, all right, okay, he's off, he's good. Take the training wheels off. Okay, son, you're good. You can, you know, the rest of your adventures is on you, right? So that's kind of what it was. You know, my dad was still, although he didn't spend as much time with me at the lathe, occasionally, you know, he would stop in and say, hey, how are things going? He's curious. He'd work a little bit, you know, on a brush here or there. But my brushes, I was just turning them out, you know, and he was more, a lot of times he would just, he made some on his own, you know, a couple more to give to people. But then as soon as he had conquered that, as soon as he'd figured it out and had his fun with it, he was off to, you know, other adventures and other projects. But this became a passion for me because I just enjoyed it, and I started getting better at it, People started showing interest in the brushes, so I was like, okay, well, if somebody, they want to buy them, okay, cool, this is cool. I hadn't expected it. I was still working my other job. I didn't think it was going to become a business or anything like that. So I was working a job at the time where I was working, you know, almost 60 hours a week. I was waking up at 3 in the morning, coming home at 3 in the afternoon. I'd come home and I'd turn brushes until 10 o'clock at night, 10, 11 o'clock at night, go to sleep, wake up. I did that for a long time, saving to get, you know, I was reinvesting everything that I made back into making these shaving brushes and getting better equipment and tools, which is very expensive, and things like that. You know, you have to turn out a lot of brushes to take the profit and reinvest, but I was reinvesting it all. I was doing it more out of like just a labor of love and a passion. Anyways, my dad loved to see these, you know, even though at that point he really wasn't like helping me out with the brushes, I had, you know, taken to it myself. I was doing it myself, and my dad just took pride in seeing these brushes. He just loved to see the stuff that I was turning out. What's the new thing that you're working on, and how? Anyways, so he just loved that. He actually got cancer. He had a stroke one day unexpectedly from out of nowhere. Next thing we know, he's rushed to the hospital where they discover that he has a brain tumor that was caused the stroke because it was putting pressure. Anyways, so my dad ended up being in brain surgery, and they had found out that the tumor was cancerous, so they had to remove it because it was a very fast-growing cancer, aggressive. They were trying to get all of it that they could. And my dad was never the same after that brain surgery. He was paralyzed. And so for the next 8 months, as he fought that brain cancer, he was also paralyzed on the half side of his body. So the one thing my dad always looked forward to is when I'd come down on the weekends, he always wanted to see these brushes that I was making. It just lifted his spirits, it just made him happy. And he always looked forward to a shave. I'd give him a shave when I came down. I lived, 3 hours away, so I couldn't be there to see him every day. But we shared shaving in common, and since he couldn't shave himself anymore, he really looked forward to when his son could show up, show him the new brushes that I've been working on, and give him a fresh, nice, clean shave, something that luxury, something that he just looked forward to, And it just helped. It was something very special that my dad and I ended up growing a lot closer to one another through a common hobby, and it just ended up being a great thing. Well, after my dad passed away, I took a month off of work, and I thought I was going back to work, and I just had a feeling, some things happened last minute, within, I was 12 hours away from going back to work. I just had some unmistakable things happen where I just decided, the way that I looked at life after that, after walking with my dad through the struggle that he had, seeing him pass away and stuff, I just looked at life and the things that are important, in a totally different light. It really changed me as a person in a lot of ways, and I spent a month just off of work, just dealing with everything, and I actually just decided to carry this torch, to go full time into this thing and just give it everything I had, and just share the passion with other people that I shared with my dad. So that's how it all ended up being what it was, and what it has become. And I've been making brushes ever since. So you never know. You never know what might happen in your life. These things that you just would never guess. One day, from a snapshot at one point in your life to a snapshot at another, you could be doing something absolutely, totally, and completely mind-blowingly different than you ever imagined seeing yourself doing. But it's just interesting how things like that happen, and I've gotten a lot of enjoyment by sharing my passion and through expressing myself through art and making useful, fun, to use things and these shaving brushes. And it's just a way that I can actually, kind of give a nod to my dad, remember him, because it's something that, we shared. It's just turned into something great. So I actually told my dad before, I'll show you a couple brushes. I told my dad before he passed away, he knew that I was, I told him I had entered a competition against other brush makers in 2018, Old Cahaba brush off. And I was competing is going to be competing against a lot of really incredible brush artisans. And I remember telling my dad, I'm gonna win this for you, Dad. I was a rookie, I was very relatively new, but there was no better way that I could honor my dad. And subsequently, he knew it was coming up, but my dad passed away, before this happened. So I put everything into this to honor my dad. It just happened to come at a time where I just had to deliver on my promise and just honor my dad. So the brush that I made is this brush right here. And this brush is the one that won the competition that year, just as I promised my dad that I would do for him. It just turned out. So whenever I see this brush, I think of my dad, so thankful about, everything, our history, what he taught me. And, later on, I have made all kinds of different brushes, and I've come out with different knots. And my passion has just continued to grow. Here's one with we call these blood oaths. It's got a razor blade on the inside of it and blood, around the blade. Anyways, quite a story. And to think that, when I started out, I just started out with this as my first brush that I really, my first brush was actually an Omega Boar brush. But when I tried this brush, this synthetic, this was the first synthetic that I had that I really loved for the time. Like I enjoyed the feel of the synthetic better than I did Boar at that time. And that's all that I knew at the time. But it's been interesting to go through this whole journey and to learn about shaving brushes and every aspect. It's been incredible. So anyways, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Comment below what you thought about it. Anything that comes to your mind about the story. Maybe you have something in your life, a hobby that you shared with your dad, or maybe you have some other kind of connection to something. Maybe that this will just trigger your mind on something. But anyways, I look forward to your comments. Like and subscribe. There's more videos coming. I've got my next video is going to be incredible. I don't even know, I'm a little crazy for doing it, but occasionally I'll do kind of a crazy thing. But there's been a challenge out to the wet shavers in my group, and I'm going to take it. I'm taking the challenge. So that's all I'm going to say, but stay tuned for my next video. If you want to see this challenge, then subscribe and click the bell so you can get notifications every time that I release a new video. Anyways, thanks so much. We'll see you in the next Shaving with Rich video. Take care.
As always, thanks for watching, and if you want to be notified when my videos come out, just click the bell next to the subscription. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.